What's up YouTube? This is Brian from Bull Strength coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about the trap bar deadlift. So today we're going to be talking all about the trap bar deadlift. We're going to be talking about what type of gear you should be using, how to safely lift the trap bar with good form, and of course how to program the trap bar deadlift into your current gym routine. Alright, the first thing we're going to talk about is the gear, and we're going to start with shoes. So first of all, you're going to want some flat-soled shoes. This is for any type of deadlift, whether you're doing it with the barbell, trap bar, kettlebells, whatever it is. You always want a flat sole. Even lifting barefoot is better than lifting with running shoes. You don't want to deadlift in running shoes because there is a higher heel and you got that arch in there, which is going to push your knees forward and actually compromise your knees. So if you're in the Army and you're doing the trap bar deadlift as part of your PT test, one of the things you want to do is check in with your commander, your chain of command, whoever's directing the meet, and see if you're allowed to bring a second pair of shoes because you definitely want the flat soles for lifting. Now, if you're not allowed to bring an extra pair of shoes, you're basically going to have to choose whether you're going to sacrifice some run time or possibly compromise your knees by deadlifting in running shoes. So the next piece of equipment you're going to want is something to help out with your grip, right? So either some chalk to absorb the excess moisture and allow you to grip more weight, or some weightlifting straps if you're in a gym that doesn't allow chalk. And the last piece of supportive equipment you're gonna want is a weightlifting belt. You're gonna want this for bracing your core, creating a little extra intra-abdominal pressure, and protecting your back. Now, if you're in the Army, you're probably not going to be able to use a weightlifting belt in the PT test. I don't know the specific rules for the trap bar deadlift in the Army, but I imagine they're not going to allow a weightlifting belt, so it's probably better to get used to not using it if that's the case. Now that we talked about equipment that you're going to need for the trap bar deadlift, we're going to get into the form. So we're going to break it down piece by piece and talk about everything that we're doing and why we're doing it. So let's get into it. Alright, so the first step is to ensure that your feet are centered in the trap bar, right? So we want the weight to be evenly distributed between your front and your back, your anterior and posterior. So first step, make sure your feet are centered. So you're going to use these little side bars here where you load the plates. Just kind of use that as a guide to ensure that your legs are centered. The next thing you're going to want to do is make sure your grip is centered, okay? This is a very important step because if your grip is off from the center, the trap bar is either going to tip forward or tip backwards, which is going to put a lot of unnecessary strain on you. So make sure your hands are dead center. All right? And with getting your hands dead center, you want to be aiming for your lifeline here. This middle crease in your palm, right? So we want to grip it from right here so that we have a nice, firm, tight grip. You don't want to be gripping it in your knuckles, okay? So, feet are centered in the trap bar. Got my lifeline here, right? Lifeline is across the handle, dead center, on both sides. Once you get your hands on the bar, you want to ensure that your arms are completely straight, okay? So you're going to do that by flexing your triceps. That's going to fully extend your arm, and you want to keep your triceps flexed throughout the entire movement. The reason why we do this is if there's any kind of an angle in your arm, now you've taken the deadlift and you've combined it with an isometric curl, okay? And the last thing you want to be doing is curling or attempting to curl hundreds of pounds. So the next step we want to do once our hands are in place is we want to brace our core, okay? So we want to breathe air into our diaphragm breathing. Breathe into your belly. So get a big breath in your core, push outward and brace your abs. Squeeze those ab muscles. What that's going to do, like I said earlier, it's going to create intra-abdominal pressure, which is going to help protect your spine. Once we breathe in and we're braced, we want to sit back into basically a squat position. Once you get your hands on the trap bar and you bring your chest up, you are essentially in a half squat. So we've got all of our cues. Now we're sitting our hips back into a squat, chest up, eyes forward, head neutral. Now what we're going to do is we're not going to think about picking the weight up. We're going to think about driving our feet into the ground. So you want to think of the lift in terms of pushing the earth away with your feet and not actually lifting it up with your arms. If you think of it in terms of lifting, you may end up using your back, which you don't want to do. So once you're set, once your hips are back, you're going to start to feel tension in your legs. And the thing you want to do is drive with your legs into the ground, okay? Now I also mentioned you want to have a neutral head position. The reason why is if I get on the trap bar and my head is all the way back like this, it's going to cause some damage to my cervical spine, damage to my upper back with time. So before we cause some kind of a chronic injury with our spine, our upper back, we want to ensure that we keep a neutral head position the whole time. And one more thing you want to do prior to lifting off is what's called pulling the slack out of the bar. If you've ever watched a video of somebody deadlifting really heavy weight, you'll see before they actually start lifting, they usually do some sort of a jerking motion and they get tight by doing that. They're pulling the slack out, okay? The reason why we want to pull the slack out, we pretty much want to think of it exactly the same way that you would think of pulling a trailer with a truck, okay? So if you attach a chain to the back of a truck that has a trailer attached, right? And you have a bunch of slack in the chain, and then with the truck you floor it, what do you think is going to happen, right? The bed of the truck is going to come off. You're going to end up with some sort of equipment failure from that. So how do you prevent that if you're attaching a trailer to a truck? You want to pull the tension out, make sure that the chain is nice and tight, and then you want to start driving. The exact same concept applies to deadlifting, okay? So we want to pull the slack out. We want to pull on the bar a little bit, but not enough to get it off the ground. Just enough to get everything tight. All right, so once we get the trap bar off of the ground, we want to keep that breath in. We want to keep our abs flexed, and we want to keep that core tight until we lock out. Once we're safely locked out and the weight is not moving or anything, now you can reset your breath, okay? So you want to exhale and you want to breathe back in if you're going for another rep, okay? So at the top of the lift, while you're holding the handles, you want to breathe out, breathe back in, brace, and go for that next rep. Breathe out, breathe back in and reset, brace. All right, now that we've gone through all the cues, let's put them all together and do a trap bar deadlift. All right, so the first step, we want to get our lifeline, line it up with the trap bar. All right? Feet centered. Big breath. Brace core. Sit back, pull the slack out, arms are straight, triceps are flexed, and I'm driving with my legs. Drive your feet into the ground. Remember, do not think about pulling with your arms or with your back. You want to think about pushing the earth away with your feet. That is key. All right, so we've talked about equipment, we've talked about form. So now let's talk about programming. How and when are you going to be deadlifting the trap bar? So basically you can run any sort of beginner strength training program that has deadlifts in it. So whether you want to use Starting Strength by Mark Ripto, or something similar, some sort of a 5x5 program, you can replace the regular straight bar with the trap bar without any kind of a problem. Now, if you don't want to get into running a program like that, you could just incorporate 5x5s at the beginning of your leg day workout. So pretty much you're going to work up in sets of 5 until you hit a sort of a challenging weight, until the 5th rep is a little bit slower. Get that set of 5 in and then do 4 more sets. So go ahead and do some 5x5 sets with whatever weight you end up at. Just remember to slowly ramp up until you kind of find that sweet spot. Now, if you're new to deadlifting, I don't advise that you go straight for 5 sets of 5 with the trap bar deadlift, especially if you're not confident about your form or anything like that. Definitely make sure that you are confident with your form. If you need to, get a coach or something like that to actually look at your form and make sure that nothing is off. But if you are brand new to the trap bar, I'd recommend nothing more than maybe 3 sets of 8, 3 sets of 10, and not for super high effort. If you're familiar with the RPE scale, you want to be somewhere about a 7 or an 8. So just make sure that the weight is challenging enough to give you an exercise, but at the same time it's not so heavy that if your form is a little bit off, you know, you're not going to get injured. All right, that's pretty much it for the video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the content, please leave a like and subscribe. If you have a friend out there that might be struggling with the trap bar deadlift, go ahead and share this video with them. Don't forget that you can support me on Patreon and Subscribestar. And if you are in the higher tiers, you will be eligible for online coaching. So that's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.